Good morning, friends. Grace and I hope you're having a great day out there in your gardens. Today we have tons of bulb planting to get done. Now, like a crazy person, I ordered 12,000 new bulbs to put into this garden, but I want it to be the best, the biggest, and the most beautiful spring we've ever had here at North Lawn, and I have just tons and tons of projects in store for the fall and the spring. So in today's video, or today I should say rather, what we're going to do is try to get at least 2,000 tulips into the ground. These are all tulips that I plan to treat as annuals, either as an annual display, to sell as cut flowers, and then the last thing is I'm doing some trialing for Longfield Gardens this year, and so we're going to work on that today also. And just in case you're new to my channel and you're wondering how in the world can I afford to put this many tulips in my garden, I just want to let you know that what I do as part of my full-time job is that I photograph and write about bulbs. So I'm able to get a lot of bulbs sent to me, and then in order to basically pay for them, I produce written content or I photograph those bulbs for the company. So I just wanted to make that clear before we get started on all of these bulb planting projects. With all that being said, I am really passionate about bulbs and really putting out into the universe good and helpful information about them. So while we're going to be planting a lot of these bulbs together, instead of just filming myself planting bulbs over and over again, I'm going to try to do some Q&A within all these videos, because I've covered most of these bulbs in the past, and so now what I'm doing is going back to the comment section of those videos, pulling out the questions that I see the most, and I'll answer them throughout the course of our day. Now there are 16 unique tulip divisions to choose from, and some of them are early, mid-season, and late. Today and this year I chose only to bring in early and mid-season tulips, because over the years I've noticed that in my very wet and humid climate, sometimes the very late tulips don't do well at all. In fact, because of the amount of moisture we get in early May, it actually causes the buds to mold or never open properly. But the early and mid-season tulips never do that. And when it comes to ordering tulips, knowing whether that tulip is early, mid, or late season is so incredibly helpful. Not only will it help you to determine whether or not that tulip is a good performer in your climate, but it will also tell you whether or not you are planning a show that comes on all at once or whether you're planning a staggered performance. So for example, what we're doing in the main flower walk this year is we're doing a show that's going to come on all at once, only early and mid-season tulips. But if I were to stick in a late tulip in there, that late tulip would bloom all on its own. So when I'm looking at the pictures of the tulips and saying these colors work nicely together, it's also important for me to think about, well, when are they going to bloom? Are they going to bloom all together? Are they going to have a staggered bloom time? So if you want a show that happens all at once by all the same season, or the seasons that are shoulder seasons, and if you want basically a staggered season, then buy all 3 seasons and get that full month of tulip blooms if your climate does allow for it. Now, if we want to divide tulips further, we can actually look at the 16 different tulip divisions. I don't think I know them all offhand, but I'll put them on the screen. But some of them that come to mind are single early, double early, single late, double late, Darwin hybrids. If you've ever bought a bag of red and yellow tulips from Lowe's and they have a black center, those are probably Darwin hybrids. We have Triumph tulips, a really reliable performer in my area. We have fringed, parrot, Rembrandt, lily flowering, the list goes on. And noting the division of the tulip is helpful because it also signals the season. So you have your single and double earlies, those are always going to be early bloomers. Your Triumphs and your Darwins, those are always going to be mid-season. If you look at something like a fringe, a parrot, or a double late, those are always going to be late. So that just helps, I think, not just plan the look of the tulip that you want, but plan the timing of the show, which is something I really like to think about. So with all that being said, let me show you the varieties that we're going to be planting in the main flower walk today. And then throughout today, I'll go ahead and insert some more Q&A. People have asked me about plant spacing, using tulips as cut flowers, and especially about short tulips. So let me show you the bulbs that I've chosen for the main flower walk this year, and then we'll go ahead and plant some together. A lot of the bulbs that I'm doing in trenches, I've already placed in the trenches. So for our first round of tulips today, we're actually going to do 2 rounds of tulips here. But we're going to start off by using Triumph Jimmy, which is a beautiful orange tulip. These are all early to mid-season tulips. Then we're going to use Design Impression, which is somewhat of a pink tulip, somewhat of an orange tulip. It kind of depends on what time of day it is and how the light hits it. Then we're going to use Continental, which is a Merlot tulip. We're going to also use Paul Shearer, which looks just like Queen of Night, but blooms much earlier. And as you can see, I've already dug a really big trench right here at the entrance to the main flower walk. I did have tulip fire last year in a couple different areas, so I'm not planting any tulips in those areas. So we have that trench. Now, some areas I'm not able to dig the entire trench all at once. And so what I'll do is dig half the trench, place the bulbs in, and then I'll move the soil back over and cover them up, and then dig the remainder of the trench. So we'll have some larger swoops. So I did take out all of the coleus, all of the impatiens, and that's essentially where we're going to plant these big drifts. That's where all of our ditches are going to be. And then I'm going to come back in a little bit later with Curly Sue, Purple Lady, and Irene, which are once again orange, purple, and Merlot tulips. And we'll just scatter those throughout. And so that'll be the tulips that we have in this area. So I have the tulips in all of these trenches, but I left one for us to do together. Gracie wants to be planted in the tulip ditch. So I'm not going for a specific pattern, but I want to try to get a little bit of each variety all throughout my ditch. Do you have any Bob Ross fans out there? I think we could call this the joy of bulbing, just like his show is called The Joy of Painting, because after all, we're painting with bulbs, or Grace is playing with bulbs at least. All right, there's the other side of that trench. Ooh, really windy today. So we've got all the trenches planted, and now what I'm going to do is start to cut back some of my perennials, and I'm going to use my bulb weasel to plant around those perennials. I wanted to show you this tool. I want to let you know I don't have anything to do with this company at all. I don't know anything about them, but I purchased this on Amazon last year. I think I was paying maybe $40 to $50 for it. This is the most helpful bulb planter I have ever purchased. I have another one where you actually have to stand up, and you can get maybe like these 3 plugs to go in this central cylinder, but then you have to turn it over every 3 plugs. This, and I'll put some overlay footage of this for you, you just push it into the ground and it pops out the plug. You drop the bulb in and then insert the plug right back into the hole. I have a few more trenches to do here in the main flower walk. I planted all the ones I showed you on the table, but I decided to also add in Princess Irene, which is another orange tulip, and Purple Lady. But let's go ahead and do some Q&A now. The number 1 question, well, maybe the number 2 question I get is, why are my tulips blooming on short stems? There's 3 reasons why your tulip might be blooming on short stems. The first reason is that you may have just purchased a short tulip by accident. I can completely understand, and this has happened to me in the past. You just get caught up in that square picture. You just see the bloom and you forget to look at the mature height. Some tulips are short. If you think about something like an Angelique tulip, I think that tulip only reaches 12 inches high. That's a short tulip. But if you just look at the square picture they give you, you might forget to look at the height, and then you might end up with a short tulip. The second reason why your tulip might be blooming short is that the bulb, for one reason or another, didn't get enough chilling. Every tulip has a certain number of weeks that it needs to be chilled for. Every variety is different. Some varieties are 15 weeks, 16, 17, 18, 19, and even 20. So if you have an early tulip, that tulip is going to require less chilling time than a late tulip. So you actually might even have a situation in your garden where only some of them are short. Well, is it the lates? Because that late didn't get 20 weeks of chilling? And that chilling can be because you didn't get it in the ground soon enough. Perhaps you are in a climate where you actually need to buy pre-chilled bulbs. They have 9C bulbs, which you can purchase, that has partial chilling, and then they have a 5C bulb, which is completely chilled. That bulb has all the chilling necessary. You'd only need to buy 5C if you are forcing tulips or if you're in a zone 10 or 11. And then our third reason is that they just didn't get enough water when they were planted, or they didn't get enough water when they started to emerge from the earth in the spring. So when I first plant all my bulbs, if it hasn't been raining and there's no rain in the forecast, I'm going to water in the bulbs really well, and I'm going to take into consideration that I need to get that water down to the bulbs. So the bulbs are 6 or 8 inches down depending on what I'm planting. So that's really quite a lot of water that I need to get down to the bulbs to make sure they're watered in well. Some people even like to put their bulbs in the ditch, then water, then cover them up, and then water again. Now, like I say, it's normally raining all the time here, so that's never something that I do, but I do see other growers doing that. What also could happen on the flip side is that they didn't get enough water prior to blooming in the spring. Both problems can occur, and both problems result in a short tulip. All right, friends, we got about 1,200 and I believe 40 bulbs planted in the main flower walk. I have about 60 of the jimmies left over. So now we're going to move on to the raised beds, and I'm going to do this one with you because we're doing some really fun trials this year for Longfield Gardens. So we're doing a couple of mixes where we're trialing one family against another. So this particular area is planted with Pride Orange, Pride Apricot, and Pride Pink. Now, the number one question, hands down, I get about planting tulips in a raised bed is how many tulips can you fit in a raised bed? So I'm able to plant 450 bulbs in this raised bed, but I could push that to even 500 to 550. You see, I haven't gone all the way to the sides. I don't really do egg carton style anymore. I do about 1 finger to 2 fingers in between each bulb. I do live in a really wet and humid climate, and I find that that helps. So this side is going to be the Pride series, and then this other side is going to be the Impression series, which we've grown before, and I can put some pictures that I took on the screen. Last year we grew Apricot Impression. Pink Impression I saw over at Longwood Gardens. And then Salmon Impression, I'm pretty sure we had also in the main flower walk. All right, friends, we got this bed planted, and I will top this up with some more soil in the days ahead. Now I moved on to our first double stacked raised bed where I'm doing another series from Longfield Gardens, and I'm also incorporating woodstock hyacinths into this display. So this is 410 bulbs, 110 hyacinths, the rest are tulips. In case you've never touched a hyacinth bulb before, I just want to let you know that some people, including myself, are very sensitive to the powdery coating found on the bulb. So you definitely want to go ahead and take precaution there and wear gloves the entire time you touch them. You can see I have disposable gloves right here. So in this bed, we have the Van Eyck series, the Orange, Lady, and Mystic Van Eyck, also Purple Raven. And I did think that Purple Raven and the Woodstock Hyacinth would look really, really nice together. So I just wanted to give you a look at what that looks like before I cover these up. So I have those two beds planted with tulips for long field gardens. The remainder of the raised beds I'm going to use for tulips as cut flowers that I plan to sell, and daffodils that I plan to sell as cut flowers. In that case, I am also going to treat the tulips as an annual, and I'm going to pull the entire plant out of the ground, including the bulb. This allows me to quickly clear the bed. It also ensures that I don't leave any disease behind in the bed. If I leave the bulb in there and the bulb does have a disease, then I'm leaving that in my soil. And also, if I was to just cut the tulip at ground level and only leave the bulb in the ground, there's nothing left above ground to replenish the bulb for next season. If I want to perennialize a tulip, the first thing I want to do is start with a tulip that's a good perennializer, a Darwin, a Triumph, or my favorite, a Fosteriana. Those three tulips are more reliable in terms of getting them to come back than something like a double late. So if I wanted my tulip to come back in subsequent years, I have to really think about and understand what's happening underground with that tulip. So our tulip is planted in the fall. It has hopefully about a month to root in before the ground freezes. Over the winter, nothing happens. In the spring, growth resumes both underground and above ground. Then it blooms, and then what I would need to do if I wanted it to come back reliably for me is go ahead and deadhead the flower so that it can't set seed. I need to let the foliage and the stem die back completely. That's going to replenish not only the mother bulb that I planted, but also the daughter bulbs that the mother bulb produced during the last few months. So while the plant is dying back naturally, the mother bulb is producing daughters. And so if we were to dig up the mother bulb, we would find not just the mother, but the daughter bulbs left behind. And it takes the daughter bulbs sometimes 2 seasons, sometimes even 3, to get to the point where they can bloom. And so that's why a lot of times, even if you maybe do everything right, you will be kind of a little bit disappointed with the show the following year, because you're left with a mixture of these depleted mother bulbs and new daughter bulbs. And the daughter bulbs need a while to bulk up and really basically get back to the size necessary for them to put on a nice big bloom for you. Well, friends, I think that brings me to the end of today's video. We still have about 2,000 more tulips to get into the ground, and then I will move on to daffodils. I'm doing a massive amount of daffodils this year, more than I've ever done before. We've got alliums, hyacinths, grape hyacinths, ranunculus, all kinds of stuff. So I'm gonna rest my back for tomorrow, and I'll see you then. Bye.